I hope everyone is happy this morning. I'm certainly happy to be back, and I wish I could all see you in the room, but for now, we'll do it this way. So welcome to the Pulse Breakfast 2021 edition. And as always, we are delighted to have all of you here. A little bit about how the morning is going to go. So our pledge to you is to get you out by 10 o'clock. So we'll wrap by 10 at the latest. We have this time 2 startup speakers. So 2 5-minute pitches starting in a few minutes here. And the first one would be Rob Ailing from Spectrum Disinfectant. And the second one will be Hagai Levy from Illuria. Then we'll go through our calendar. Actually, I'm going to do this ahead of time. And then we'll get to the things I'll share with you that I see being hot in 2021 as well. So that's kind of our run through. You might remember that the 4 objectives that we're trying to achieve here with the Pulse Breakfast is, number 1, get you a topic that's interesting. So that's in the eye of the beholder. So hopefully you logged on because you wanted to hear me speak. Usually we get some outside speaker that speaks on health innovation or is a successful health entrepreneur. Number 2, we'll get you at least 1 startup pitch from a startup. And today actually we're going to do 2 of those. Number 3 is we share with you a calendar of events, things that are coming up in the near future, at least between today and our next Pulse Breakfast. And lastly, networking. And so networking used to be a lot more fun, for those of you who remember. But in lieu of the networking aspect, number 1, of course, the chat is open. But in lieu of what we're doing here, we have a exclusive Health Wildcatters LinkedIn group. And all of you are going to be admitted to that group. And the admission goes by the fact that you have attended a Health Wildcatters meeting. So everybody that you will find in this group has attended at least 1 Health Wildcatters event of some kind. So it's not quite the same as usual, but you should be able to find the people that are in the room here with you today on that LinkedIn group. Obviously, you have met Lindsay Settles here, who runs the show for me, and the music and all the other things, so everything goes smoothly. So Lindsay's my partner in crime here. And Lindsay also manages our facility, which is wide open. We actually have quite a number of startups here still, but in case you don't know this, or in case you didn't know this, you can co-work here on a la carte base, have a room, have a desk, and have it all be COVID appropriate. So we've had startups work from here throughout the crisis, and we'll continue to be open to any of you. Our focus obviously is on healthcare startups, but you don't have to be a graduate of Health Wildcatters to be admitted to the facility. So now to our calendar. Our next Pulse event is a Pulse Lunch, which will talk about research tax credits. Michael Harbert would give the talk. He used to be here in Dallas. He's now in New York. Great guy, lots of insights there, and he's going to do it together with a partner. Our next Pulse Breakfast is March 23rd. We're firming up the speaker on that, but we've locked the date in. Launch Bio has an event, making your exit strategic trends to consider. I might have to look at my cheat sheet here because I'm blocking my own view here with myself. And that's on April 8th. Then on April 22nd, we will have a Health 2.0 meeting. And for those of you who don't know, Health 2.0 is a digital health interest group now owned by HIMSS, by the HIMSS organization, but Health 2.0 Dallas is an organization that actually was started many years ago by Michael Walsh and a couple others that we've helped taking over. And so this will be, the topic will be price transparency, and our speakers will be from Clara, the CEO of Clara Price, And so this is a very, very hot topic for those of you who know, finally a hot topic, because it's been talked about for so many years, but it's actually now coming into motion. We also have some deadlines for things to apply to. So many of you know the Texas Healthcare Challenge takes place the end of next week, and so there's still a few spots open. It's a virtual and in-person hybrid event, so if you're comfortable, you can participate in person. It's a Friday, Saturday event with workshops leading up all through next week, so you can attend a workshop and get to know the virtual tools that will allow you to communicate with your team. And so that's application still open. You can find it on our webpage or on texashealthcarechallenge.com. Then also you might have seen that we are partnering with United Way of Metropolitan Dallas on the Health Innovation Tech Challenge. The application deadline there is March 8th. The focus is on social health impact. And what's remarkable about that competition is that there is $1 million up for grabs. So this is a very significant amount of money that is on the table. And so we're delighted to collaborate with United Way of Metropolitan Dallas to bring that to our community. And the actual event is more in the time frame of May, but the application time deadline is March 8th. Then our own investment conference, pitch competition, the Health Innovation Pitch Competition, together with the Healthcare Dealmakers Conference, wrapped into our MedVentures event. Deadline is on March 31st. The event takes place in mid-May. And so that's open to all healthcare startups. And then open to all of you at this point, or please tell your friends and others, is the Health Wildcatters Accelerator Program. Applications are already open. Deadline is not until end of May, but of course there's a big advantage in submitting early because you'll get some additional consideration and more eyeballs on the few applications that are in early, as opposed to the ones that come in the last minute. As always, we couldn't do what we do without the support of our sponsors, and there are many, as you can see, so we're extremely lucky in having all these fine companies support us, support what we do, support you by proxy, health innovators in our community, and those that are doing the great work that really moves the dial. So now I'd like to punt it over to Rob Ailing of Spectrum Disinfectant. I'll unshare and let Rob share his screen. Rob will give a 5-minute presentation and then unshare his screen again. So Rob, the floor is yours.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good to go.
All right, I'm Rob Ailing, and I'm the founder and president of Spectrum Disinfection. We're an alumni of the 2020 Health Wildcatters program, accelerator program. Spectrum is a new surface disinfection or disinfection platform that we're bringing to the consumer, commercial, and healthcare markets. Before COVID came along, which has really distracted the whole discussion of combating infectious diseases, 25%, 1 in 4 deaths were caused by infectious diseases. And in the paper this morning, I saw something to the effect that surface disinfection really is a low priority for combating COVID, but we're talking about diseases that preceded COVID and that will be there after COVID is managed properly. For example, 10,000 people a year die of a disease called C. diff. Typically, it's acquired inside a healthcare institution, and hundreds of thousands of people suffer through that disease. And that tells you that surface disinfection is a big challenge in the healthcare sector, just as it is in every other aspect of modern life. And so surface disinfection is the key to combating infectious diseases. At the same time, there's a growing awareness of the need for more effective disinfection. So superior disinfection, disinfectants that are safer to use and are better for the environment. And so that is a challenge to the legacy brands, and that is the opportunity that we have. Now, chlorine dioxide is a widely used industrial disinfectant, water, drinking water, grey water systems, livestock and produce processing, all sorts of things like that. However, it is unstable in solution. So typically it's mixed together from precursor chemicals with water, but once it's mixed together, it degrades rapidly and it cannot be transported or stored. What we have done is discover and patent methods to stabilize chlorine dioxide so it has shelf life, so it can now be used in the consumer, commercial, and healthcare markets. What does this mean for the consumer? What it means is that products with our technology represent a significant competitive advantage over the likes of Lysol and Clorox and other legacy brands, because we can produce a whole spectrum, no pun intended, of disinfecting products using the same platform. None of the legacy companies can do that. So for example, we could have a surface and fabric spray, an aerosol disinfectant, a skin and surface wipe, and a gel that you can put on skin, all from the same platform. And so for the consumer, buying products with our platform means that they will no longer have to compromise their values or desires when it comes to buying disinfecting products. They can have safer or better disinfecting. They can have products that are safer to use around their home, their family, their pets, and products that are better for the environment. In 5 minutes, we really can't explore the other technical advantages, but just looking at this screen tells you that on any reasonable objective measure, our technology is vastly superior to the legacy brands of Clorox, Lysol, hydrogen peroxide, alcohol, and so forth. The disinfecting market is $20 billion and growing rapidly, and typically in legacy industries, the disinfecting giants of the industry have focused on sales, marketing, and distribution at the expense of innovation. And we really represent that innovation. As I said earlier, people are now really demanding environmentally safe disinfecting and sanitizing products. And so our competitive advantage is that we have a superior technology that is completely aligned with the needs of modern consumers when it comes to making buying decisions for disinfectants. Our first product will be a product that we are developing with an institutional consumer package company. Can't talk more about that, but our own first product will be a sanitizer product with odor and allergy and even a COVID label that we will sell direct to the market and bypass brick and mortar. We need $750,000 to do that. We need to raise $2 to $5 million to build out a full product suite that will go into brick and mortar, institutional and commercial markets and institutional healthcare. We have a couple of real advantages, one of which is we don't need plant and equipment. So we can put money that we would otherwise have for plant and equipment into sales, marketing, and branding, and we can bypass brick and mortar by going directly to the consumer. Our opportunity is huge. We have a strong management team, including 2 people who have over 50 years, chemists at Clorox, and another guy with a sales, marketing, and e-commerce background at Clorox, at Lysol. Thank you for your time. Please let Hubert know if you'd like to talk to us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob, and thanks for being so perfectly on time. If you would go ahead and unshare, thank you. Our next speaker is Haggai Levy of Illuria. And by the way, Rob, we'll put your contact information also into the chat. If you want to go ahead and do that, it's easy to do. And so anyone that's listening can contact you besides us, of course, but we'd be happy to connect people as well. So now it's my pleasure to our first double header, actually. To introduce Haggai Levy of Illuria, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Hubert, and thank you for the opportunity. Hi, everyone. My name is Haggai Levy. I am the founder and CEO of Illuria. Illuria is a digital health company focusing on remote patient monitoring for mental health disorders, starting with attention deficit hyperactive disorder. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, ADHD is considered to be a chronic disorder with short-term attributes of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity, and some other pretty severe long-term implications if not properly treated. Please meet Elad. Elad is my 10-year-old son. He was diagnosed with ADHD at a very, very young age, and it was almost impossible for us to manage his treatment as we could never assess whether the medical treatment was effective or not. And Elad is not alone. 1 in 10 kids are diagnosed with ADHD, and the treatment is almost completely trial and error based. And the reason for that is that after the initial diagnosis process starts a never-ending calibration as our physiology is changing. And this stage is completely trial and error based, using manual subjective questionnaires, same as it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, with some very poor clinical outcomes and enormous cost, which results from this extremely volatile process, as not all of the excessive costs can be covered and billed for. And this is the market failure that we're trying to close. We're developing a solution which will deliver continuous and objective monitoring, and the basic idea is to analyze physiological markers. The system retrieves physiological markers from basically any smart commercial device, and then we mathematically analyze these markers to deliver various analysis reports to the different stakeholders. And a few more words about the technology. As I mentioned, we are basically gathering sensor data from any smart commercial device. And then we developed and trained algorithms which analyzes these markers to deliver analysis, which basically mimics the gold standard in ADHD. We concluded a clinical trial with the largest HMO in Israel to establish the initial calculation engine. And right now we are scaling up the process in the States with the Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and we're having three similar processes with very large providers in Europe. And just to sum up the product side, I'll present you with the old versus the new. So in the current approach, actually, using, again, manual questionnaires, usually after a month of proactive involvement by the physician, they can reach some sort of a decision, again, basing it on the subjective inputs of the questionnaire, whereas in the new approach, we offer objective analysis using passive measurements of physiological markers in which one can see the actual treatment effectiveness in many different layers. The daily curves, such as the one you see here, aggregated data regarding titrations, continuous patterns, prediction models, and so on and so forth. A few words about the business. We are targeting the large providers and the payers with a combined value proposition of not only better caregiving, but also immense cost reduction. The parents are always a value target in ADHD, and actually we have some real tangible offers to quickly gain traction as the lowest hanging fruit strategy with some technological players who are dealing with the ADHD ecosystem. Together with that, we are also examining some other market segments, but it's a bit too early to elaborate on them yet. The total addressable market is quite large, taking into consideration the overall prevalence and the specific segments we are targeting. The estimated cost reduction, which we basically solidified in the clinical trials, and the estimated price point. And just to conclude the presentation, I'll present you with our current status. So we've done an extremely long kickoff process with lots of validation. We got the initial funding just recently, and we also secured the IP. We are in national phase for ADHD, and actually we started covering up some other disorders. As I mentioned, we concluded the clinical trial in Israel, and currently we're scaling it up in the States with Cincinnati Children's, which will actually be our design partner, meaning there will be some commercial implications to the partnership, and we're having three similar processes in Europe. We established a 2.5-year plan for full commercialization, which would cost $3 million, with an initial milestone of $900,000 to both conclude production level MVP and to conclude the POC with the Cincinnati Children's. A few words about the team. In the internal team, we have many, many years of business, R&D, product, and development experience, mostly in medium-sized companies, which some of them afterwards exited. In the external team, the advisory board, we have both physicians and computational biology experts. And aside from them, we're also getting some external supports from the different providers we're working with. As I mentioned, we're looking to raise $900,000 for the initial milestone to both complete a commercial level MVP and to conclude the POC with the Cincinnati Children's. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Haggai. Appreciate it. And I will go back to our presentation here. guy's intro. Okay, well, again, thank you, Haggai. Thank you, Rob. Thanks, everyone, for being here this morning. Also, Lindsay is going to put all the relevant links into the chat. So you should see the contact information for Haggai and Rob. Haggai, you can put your own in, popping up there, but also the LinkedIn group that we're inviting you to join, which again is consistent of people that have networked at or participate in one of our events, so in lieu of the actual networking. So talking about the 2020-21 year is a quite interesting task, but apart from the things that have kept us busy the last year, there are some factors that are continuing to gain traction. And my remarks are always heavy on the digital health side, and you will see that throughout. And it does not mean that there aren't things happening in the traditional drug development areas, and I'll touch on a couple, but this is really talking about trends that we see through applications, things that I see and talk to with people, and observations that I've made over the last couple of years. So we'll dive right into it. With the big surprise is the clunky black telephone on the right upper corner, telemedicine. I think this is the theme in a lot of cases today, is 2020 was the crash course on telemedicine. Everybody knew it existed, but only some people had ever used it. And that counts for physicians too. And just to show on the provider side or on the employer side, only about half of employers reimbursed for telemedicine visits just 4 years ago, and that number is almost 100% now. So this is something that happened throughout 2020 and continues to happen. That some things got accelerated in a way that we couldn't have predicted, and really a kick in the butt for a lot of technologies that were ready for prime time, and people for really inexplicable reasons did not pull the trigger on it. So the same stats are roughly true for physicians, only certainly not a big majority, but maybe a small majority, maybe about the same numbers of physicians had ever used telemedicine before March of last year. And that number, by the time June rolled around, was pretty much everyone. And so that's an interesting statistic as well. And pretty much everyone that's still practicing medicine has now experienced telemedicine calls, and at least in some form. The things that are interesting about 21 or going forward is the further evolution of telemedicine into many, many aspects. And so pairing telemedicine with wearables, various new wearables, but also old and known wearables is going to continue. Opportunities, I just list a few startups I'm familiar with. On the wearable side, Echoscope, AliveCore, which is the Cardia, the EKG monitor you can have in the wristband of an Apple Watch or the Apple Watch itself. Any kind of monitor is now that telemedicine is a little bit better established, able to actually tie into those channels and be acknowledged and used. On the telemedicine side, you would think that, Teladoc being, I don't know, a $40 billion company, some huge market cap, that market isn't growing, but it is. It's growing rapidly, and there's still new telemedicine companies coming about. What I see most of the time is niches and areas that are not explored yet, with some different spins on things that make things easier. As the similar observations that you would make when you observe social media. Sometimes something new comes around, and it's not all that earth-shattering, but it does have an appeal, and it does make a difference. TikTok would be a good example, right? I mean, what's new about that? And it's just continuous 1 minute clips of videos. So There's the same is true in telemedicine. Things are popping up that are innovative, that integrate new aspects, that make life more convenient and easier. And so some companies here, but besides TeleDoc and ZocDoc, you know, Healthy Quit, Perinatal Access, which focuses on high-risk pregnancies, Recura, which is a startup that rolls in several other telemedicine plays, Healthy Quit, which incorporates a digital pharmacy, are things that we're paying attention to. Oh, let's see what happened here. Oh, it's the elephant in the room. Oh, I get it. Oh, this is so clever. So clever. Okay, the elephant in the room. I just beat around the bush the last 3 minutes. Anyway, the elephant in the room is COVID. So a lot of people would think that this is going to be history when the vaccines are prevalent and we all can go on to our normal life. And the answer, of course, is normal life is going to be different from here on out. At least that's my opinion. Now, that doesn't have to necessarily mean it's gloom and doom or horrible, but it's going to be different. And also, to not mention COVID on slide 1, which I should have done, is just kind of ignoring the facts. So here it is on slide 2. It was an instant market in 2020 on all sorts of levels that we had not paid attention to. If you just think about PPE, a year ago, you could have asked 100 people and maybe one person would have known what PPE stands for. So, I mean, that's the impact that COVID's had on all levels. And of course, healthcare is ground zero for all of that. It will stay with us. It creates and has created new markets because infectious diseases in the Western world have been not a major topic for middle-aged people or healthy people, and it's become a topic. And so once again, COVID's changed a lot of things. There are some startups that are right in the mix of it, but then there are also peripheral aspects of what COVID caused or what the pandemic caused that are not to be underestimated, whether it is Digital Immunity, a company that helps with tracking and predicting exposure risk, or Spectrum, which you just saw pitch, or Reopia, which focuses on nearsightedness, you name it. So it's an overarching theme. It is not one we can leave behind in 2021, just like 2020. It will be the major dominant factor in the news. Moving on to the third theme or topic or area that I see activity in, that I believe 2021 will see more of, and that's consolidation and mergers. So we're approaching, depending on which statistic you watch, a healthcare market of $4 trillion in the United States alone, obviously worldwide much larger, but disproportionately large in the US, as you might know as well. We spend a lot more on healthcare. The fallacy, however, is it's not one $4 trillion market. It is more like 1,000 $4 billion markets. And of course, I'm totally oversimplifying here, but I want to leave you with that impression that there are so many. If you talk $1 billion market, last time I checked, that was significant. We're talking about $4 billion markets, and we're talking about 1,000 of those. And so it is in healthcare. And what that means is there are so many pockets for innovation, so many synergies to be harvested, so many efficiencies to be gained. So I expect that in every aspect of medicine and healthcare. So it is not a runner-up or kind of an overarching trend that's kind of also ran. This is a major topic. And you could take the example just of hospitals, right? Why is there not a national hospital brand of any kind? There's really no good answer. The answer is multifold, but the reality is, couldn't a hospital group that's much larger and that extends throughout the United States have huge efficiencies? Absolutely. So in most, and we do have some national chains, of course, they're larger, but they're still minuscule when compared to the market. And so I'm not saying this is a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that it is unusual. It's unusual in healthcare, and we see a lot of activity in that space. Going together with that, health insurance deductibles and value-based care are going to continue to be a big playground for startups and for innovation. So the only thing that we know is that yin-yang is in full action again. We were all accountable Care Act. We've kind of swung back the last 4 years. Now the question is, how far will we swing in ACA 2.0? Nobody knows. What we do know is that healthcare is disproportionately expensive in the United States, and the finger pointing has no end. So there's so many reasons why that is. We can't really point towards overall longevity rates because we are not showing better results than other Western countries. So what that points to is inefficiencies. And we all know the increasing premiums and increasing deductibles with health insurance. And there are so many startups and so much innovation in that space that we continue to see a lot of, because it's humongous markets that we're playing with. So some examples down there are the opportunities. Obviously, I think the big insurers have a lot of opportunities ahead of them, and they really don't seem to be innovating along the lines of what I would expect from them, but that's not atypical for large corporations. Innovation really comes from the startups. Take Command Health, others that are revolutionizing the insurance market, able to trying to get to people to motivate them and to get them to take their physical therapy and help them, a helping hand when you've been diagnosed with something. Clara Price, MediBooker with price transparency, just like Castlight, for instance, CareLoop. So many opportunities in this space. It is not slowing down. The big question mark, of course, is, since it's a lot of it is policy driven, how far will we go? Where will the innovation be? Which startup can pivot fast enough? And who was already in the right space to start with to take advantage of that? Home health has been on my top 10 list for a long time. It got that booster shot of COVID. Not many people are excited. Nobody ever was to be in a long-term care facility or nursing home, but even less so now. So anything you can do at your home with regard to home health or being taken care of at home is extremely attractive. It's extremely attractive from a cost point of view as well, and that is universally recognized. The question is, how can we get cost-efficient tools into the hands of the providers at your home, or how can we assist your providers at your home to allow you to live longer at your home, or even be taken care of with significant health issues at your home? Because if that was desirable before, it is twice as desirable now. And I think I would venture to say, apart from it being a value play, which it always was for many, it also is a desirability play at a higher level now. It may have not been as high now, and it's definitely a desired thing. Very often the dichotomy would be between patients wanting to stay at home, like an elderly patient, and the kids or caretakers just say they can't do it anymore, right? And I think kids and caretakers and others, and not just from a financial obligation point of view, but from a COVID lens, basically, are saying, no, give me tools, let me take care of my loved one at home. So examples, obviously Access Health here in Dallas, Autonomy, again, telemedicine playing a big role in all those aspects. Even Halo Health with remote clinical trials, Cloud9 with its mental health tools, Vivify Health, which is also a regional startup, was purchased by Optum. So remains a big trend. And while we're on the topic of home, another big boost from COVID came to home health testing. Again, while the temporary event would have been the don't want to go to a hospital because we might catch COVID there, or we don't want to be exposed to COVID at a primary care facility, whatever. But some people just wouldn't trust these diagnostics that would come to your home. They would still go. And that has changed in the last year. People would prefer, or a larger chunk of people would prefer to have these tests, any tests, performed at home. Now, there are some obvious ones that have had some good traction when you're talking about STDs or any kind of testing that is cumbersome or embarrassing potentially or stigmatized. Okay, that's a no-brainer, and it's been there, and it's had some validity. But we're now talking about any kind of testing because the convenience factor has been discovered, and it's one of those things where you had to experience it. And again, COVID gets credit here. You had to experience it once to understand, okay, I can do this, and I can do it at home, and I can change my expectations and my ways, and it's not bad. And so I'm not sure what to compare it to, but again, the pandemic forced us to look in the mirror and see whether we'd rather try something new. We tried something new, and we discovered, lo and behold, in a lot of cases that we preferred a new way. So just somebody had to show us, and we had to experience it once. So of course, this also extends to the whole COVID testing market, which is going to continue to be humongous and be its own major category, and which we all will want to have tests depending on rules. We would want to take them with us on vacation. We might need them to enter certain facilities. Who knows? So that market's going to continue to be large, and in the hands of the consumer will be of interest to many. But apart from that, Gregor Diagnostics, which is an at-home prostate cancer diagnostic, SpareMe, which has to do with sperm bank storage, Everlywell, which is in Austin and has a whole bunch of different tests, and many others are exploring this market and have likely experienced a higher demand in the last year. So here's one that's really unfair because I combined two topics. Because I wanted to have a top 10, I needed to cut corners somewhere, and I couldn't let go of either of the two. I think the new bit, and this is appropriately placed, is mental health. Not new in the sense that we didn't know about it, but new in the sense that there is a renewed and more urgent need for mental health delivery. But pain management and the results of pain medication abuse are with us and have been with us and haven't gotten better in the last year. So while they are not the same, they're both issues that have been with us and both got a big boost. Obviously, there's quite a bit of overlap between pain medication and depression and mental health. And this is not a clean slide, I'll give you that. There is a lot of innovation in both areas. So obviously any kind of, and let me read you the first line there. 32% of US consumers said they experienced anxiety or depression as a result of the pandemic in 2020. This is a PwC Health Research Institute report. I mean, that's stunning. That's a stunning number. I mean, even if it's a fraction of that, we're going to be dealing with a tsunami and are dealing with a tsunami of diagnosed or undiagnosed mental health issues that are going to be upon us. And that goes on the heels of Kill 22, which a lot of you probably know that 22 veterans take their own life every single day. Kill 22 happens to be one of the charities that tries to avoid that, get the number down and create awareness. But just an incredible issue that has absolutely not gotten better in the last year with isolation. And both need separate new innovation, new approaches, and we see that. We see that being addressed, whether it is on a non-opioid pain management side, better management of rehab clinics, new ideas on how to do all that, and then also on the mental health side with remote assistance in recovery and physical therapy, and so on. So a big topic. It has gotten a boost. It's not new, but it's unfortunately in many respects gotten a renewed additional set of eyeballs on it. So precision medicine, and again, I don't want to leave you with the impression that this list is complete or that I have insights into every single aspect of healthcare, but certainly many of you will know that there's been a lot of progress made in CAR-T and CRISPR being maybe a little bit more knowledge in the mainstream media about it, because they got the some controversial things that have been done there. But I guess what I'm getting at here is that bioengineering solutions to help fight disease or help our own bodies fight disease are coming. And this is just fairly new, and we're just at the beginning in a lot of respects. So CAR-T treatments are just really approved for a few diseases, and we're talking about enabling your own body to fight disease. So not unlike a vaccination, working with your own body hand in hand to help it stave off disease, in this case, cancers. But and CRISPR is just still further away unless you are a rogue person who just does it in your lab, breaking laws. That's where you really interfere with the genetic code of people. But looking at people who have certain genetic diseases and your choice of being able to cure them, you cannot stop there and just say, no, it's off limits. So CRISPR will have its role. It's early. There's a lot of exciting opportunities in that space. Obviously, a lot of it is led by the large corporations, because this is a very large, far out goal, and it requires a ton of capital, and it's a long play. But we're certainly looking at a lot of new therapies with these new approaches. And that goes with what I said earlier. There is no slide for regular good drugs being developed on an ongoing basis. A lot of the credit goes to startups that are able to push the envelope and develop new treatments that then get merged or purchased by larger pharma companies. And I want to leave a little bit of time for Q&A as well. So I got 2 more slides, and then we can also take questions. So digital health tools is a kind of a catch-all phrase. To me, what it means is anything that rests on and lives on your phone and is navigated from your phone. Just as a tidbit here, 2020 numbers for digital health funding almost doubled from 2019. So 2018 was actually a little higher. I think 2018 was 8 billion, then it went down to 7 billion, so kind of stabilizing there. And 2020 went to 14 billion. We're talking 2020, right? Things weren't supposed to be happening in 2020. Everyone was asleep. No, nobody was asleep in healthcare. Health innovation was going at a rapid clip. That does not mean everything was great and awesome, but it does mean that a lot of money was spent on digital health tools, some of which, of course, play into the topics that I touched upon earlier. But just to give you an idea of some of the areas, we're talking about rehab tools. You can see a whole listing of plays that, or startups that play in that space. Price transparency, efficiencies and cost recovery, and this is just, I'm pulling some of these companies from memory, giving some idea of some companies that we're aware of that we've crossed paths with. So a lot of these are our startups. Treatment optimization, you just saw Illuria present. I mean, can you believe that treatment for ADHD has been the way it has, the way Haggai explained it? Trial and error, see what happens. We've seen that in medicine in many cases, but ADHD just happens to be a particularly difficult one to optimize. And I mean, you just need help and tools with that. And clinical trials that are going online as well. So it's a big deal that clinical trials, pushing them into the home, and remote and distributed clinical trials are making a big leap into with the help of digital health tools. And last but not least, the 2019-2020 favorite trigger word for all startup investors was AI. So the year before it was blockchain. In case you missed it, I'm still waiting for the 2020-21. Maybe it's COVID. We got pretty tired of seeing things that attached COVID to their name just because. For a long time, people attached AI to their name. While that is appropriate and okay to do in some cases, a lot of companies that did this, it was not appropriate. They had nothing to do with artificial intelligence or machine learning. That said, there's a reason these trends, excuse me, there's a reason these trends get noticed, and the reason is that there are incredible efficiencies that can be gained from deploying machine learning or artificial intelligence. So on the data side, you have all of a sudden the capabilities of making your data actionable. One of our startups, CarrierSoft, plays in that space, and I learned from that entrepreneur that the amount of data generated on a daily basis with genetic data is far exceeding the amount of data that YouTube uploads are on a daily basis. And if you know anything, you know that YouTube and Twitter generates unbelievable amounts of data on an ongoing basis. I mean, I don't know, many thousands of hours uploaded onto YouTube every second or every minute. So put that into perspective with genetic data outstripping those data sets, then you can imagine the amount of problem you have with processing the data. So, but making these data sets actionable is a big deal, and it's not trivial to do, and you do need assistance. So artificial intelligence plays a role there. Another big topic is drug discovery. So again, if you can simulate, if you can test, if you can make actionable your discoveries and find good targets for a drug, and you can do that without having to do it by trial and error, you are light years ahead of everyone else. Obviously, many of you know Lantern Pharma, one of our graduates, had an IPO last year and plays in that space. It's a super hot space, and I think that's absolutely justified if you can prove your chops in it. There is tremendous value in that. So I will stop here and see if there are any questions in the chat. And Lindsay can also help point out any to me that are out there. Let's see if there are any questions in the chat. If you haven't asked any questions, you are welcome to ask questions now. We've got another 7 minutes, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And if you want to ask them in person also, Lindsay can, I'm looking over there because I can see her over there, yeah. Can also promote you if you raise your hand or you want to ask a question. So let's see if there are any here. I think these are all internal. Then of course there's Hagai's and Rob's contact information in here as well. If you can't find them, ping us. The networking group for LinkedIn, I encourage you all to go on LinkedIn, and the link for the Texas Healthcare Challenge. Again, a hackathon supported by, I actually didn't mention that, but Children's Hospital, Texas Health Resources, Southwestern Medical Foundation, Lantern Pharma, Local Match, Health Hacking Crisis Network, CLP Production, IBM, we're all sponsoring this hackathon. It's a virtual in-person hybrid hackathon, so it'll be a lot of fun as well. And if I don't see, I'm going to refresh it. If I don't see any questions, then I will yield you the remainder of your hour. Unshare the screen. And I know there's a Q&A and there's a chat. Okay, well, it looks like we don't have any questions or anybody raising their arms. I'm gonna look into Lindsay to see if she sees anything. Nope. Or is there one? Nope, okay, we're good. I put everyone to sleep successfully, which really was the covert operation here. Other than that, you have 5 perfectly great minutes to make this day awesome. So go do something awesome. And it was a pleasure having you as always. We look forward to seeing you at the latest at the Pulse Breakfast in March. But as you saw, there are several other events between now and then. Also tell your friends about the Pulse Breakfast series. As you know, there's no cost and there's no physical barriers. So wherever you are, you want to learn something, get to know an entrepreneur, see some startups, join us.